There is no visual component for this week's sermon because it's about dreaming. And I find that often I, at least, am able to dream better when I slow down, when I'm present to what's around me, possibly close my eyes, breathe deeply, and focus on the work of dreaming and listening. And so today I invite you to that. I invite you to meditation. I invite you to listen to these words and let your mind run wild with what is possible. Take a deep breath, center yourself, dream with us. Over the past several weeks, we've been invited to dream wildly and to share those dreams with one another. If Christ is risen, what is possible? As Christ is unearthed, what wild dreams might also be unearthed? Or truly, as Christ is earthed, as Christ inhabits earth, what wild dreams can we also earth with our hands and our feet and our words and our presence and our prayers? Next week is Pentecost. It is a day that we typically remember how Spirit came into the church and empowered and empowers us to live God's wild love, God's wild dreams. Today, as we prepare for the empowerment toward holistic goodness that is Pentecost, I want to invite you to close your eyes, breathe deeply, and receive the words of our collective wild dreaming over the past several weeks. I will not be able to read them all. I will read many, some from our Zoom conversations, some from emails you've sent me, some from a note you or our neighbors have written us, some from other sacred conversations that have taken place in other forms. I invite you to listen to these dreams. Listen for what resonates with your own heart. Listen for what enlivens you. Listen for what brings you hope. Listen for the questions that rise. And listen ever so closely for the voice of Spirit. She is wild. She is quiet. Listen as she dances between all of our words and your heart and the future the eternal one full of liberating love and justice is calling us to. My wild dream for post-COVID community, as shared by Welcome Table Christian Church and our neighbors. My wild dream for post-COVID community is that we align ourselves with Mother Nature. Less plastics, maybe no plastics. Bamboo toilet paper, no bleach papers, using compostable utensils. Being present to the earth, listening to her, spending time with her. Transforming from an economy that abuses the earth to one that is in line with her on personal levels, as a church, in our local economy, with national policy, and as a planet. My wild dream for post-COVID community is that we truly connect with Mother Earth, spending time in the church gardens, worshiping in the church gardens, having Sunday school for our children in the gardens. My wild dream for post-COVID community is that we will engage the earth in an anti-ableist way. What barriers are there for people with disabilities to connect with the earth? I want us to have a wheelchair-accessible raised bed. I want us to find ways to be present to nature that don't exclude those who cannot walk or hike. My wild dream for post-COVID community is the healing of the earth integrated with the healing of racism. Not just the healing of earth, but the healing of all of us. Earth wants to remind us to listen to her original inhabitants. Earth wants to remind us that the earth belongs to those who honor her. My wild dream is that anti-racism and creation care will meet, that we will listen to Duwamish and other indigenous voices instructing us how to care for the earth, that all our green endeavors will listen to and be led by voices from the margins, that a green economy can also be one of economic equity for communities who racism has systematically excluded from economic well-being. As Derek Weston spoke to us, my wild dream is that every act of justice can have a land and food aspect. We can restore our relationship with the land as we restore our relationship with our neighbors. My wild dream for post-COVID community is that we engage all the development happening around our building, that we host spaces indoors and outdoors where neighbors can connect, that we have meaningful events that neighbors want to join in, that we can share nourishment with our neighbors, that as our neighborhood rapidly gentrifies, we speak love and justice into that we become a hub where people can come together, not based on economic transactions. My wild dream for post-COVID community is that we continue to grow in our celebration and empowerment of LGBT plus siblings and families of all shapes and sizes. That we ask the questions that make us uncomfortable so that we are always extending our welcome. Just as pronouns may have made us uncomfortable 10 years ago, what makes us uncomfortable now? I dream we can inhabit that discomfort together. My wild dream for post-COVID community is that we support the mental health and well-being of LGBT plus youth. My wild dream for post-COVID community is that we support the new co-housing community for LGBT plus younger folks that moved into our neighborhood. My wild dream for post-COVID community is mental health, particularly around church wounds, spiritual abuse. Maybe we could have a group to discuss this. Maybe there could be a healing group. Maybe there could be a book study around spiritual abuse and other church wounds, that we may become a beacon of mental health related to spiritual wounds. My wild dream for post-COVID community is community. Questions like this one. What is your wild dream for post-COVID community? Shared amongst neighbors. Sidewalk chalk. Poetry in sidewalk chalk. Little free pantries, gardens, being together, seeing each other, grieving together, having each other's backs, hearing each other's stories, telling my story, hearing your story, seeing how our stories are alike and how they are different. Taking all the time we need to truly hear one another's stories and griefs, recognizing one another, welcoming new stories into our community, being together, welcoming, really welcoming once again. I'll close with this one that seems to cultivate a sacred space where all these wild dreams can dance together. My wild dream for post-COVID community is that we continue to be a hub where people of all different passions and compassions come together, meet, listen, share, are nourished, and return to doing good work in our world. I've had this growing wild dream that our building could be a place where these greater themes of ecology, anti-racism, anti-ableism, community, nourishment, story, LGBT plus empowerment, and one-to-one relationships, as well as mental health, can mingle. I'll read that list again. Ecological justice, anti-racism, anti-ableism, community, nourishment, story, LGBT plus empowerment, one-to-one relationships, mental health. That these can all mingle, possibly remaining distinct, but dancing together, nourishing one another, changing one another, and going out into the world differently because they have known and been known by each other. I once worked in a co-working community. There was a graphic designer, an artist, a freelance reporter, an anti-racist author, a mom blogger, a community organizer, a hub of community designers, app designers, a photojournalist, a nutritionist, a naturopath, and so many more, including me, a pastor. And we all kept our separate things, but we were sitting at tables together, working together, asking questions aloud together, and so we were all inspired and challenged and empowered by one another. As we've been wondering about our wild dreams, I keep coming back to this community that I was a part of, a hub of diverse people who came together and then went out in the world to do good. These dreams we've shared today are only some of the dreams that have been shared over the last nearly 2 months. The dreams we've shared over the last nearly 2 months are only some of the dreams Spirit has been speaking to us. And the dreams she has been speaking to us are only some of the dreams she is calling us to. So the invitation here is to keep dreaming, keep scheming, keep listening and leaning into that future. this is just the beginning of so many dreams. So many dreams that we can hold and seek and integrate together. So I'll ask again, what is your wild dream for post-COVID community? What is your wild dream for Welcome Table Christian Church?